Sasama ko na ako. Friendly ho yung media namin dito. Props na ako dito.
Sir, the first question with Anna.
Sir, what was the consensus during the first LEDAC meeting? Consensus, sir.
We took up 22 measures. No, one, I think it's a bit of reworking. This is the fiscal responsibility measure. Masyado maraming na-add-on. So, na-dilute yung main focus doon. Then there are others that we agreed to form technical working groups to harmonize better the objectives of both the executive and the legislative. That will deal with, in the bill pertaining to establishing the sea lanes, being an archipelagic country. What else was there? GOCC. And the GOCC. GOCC compensation also, no, to harmonize. But the rest, there was near unanimity in points of view as to the necessity of and the actual details of the particular pet measures that we are asking the legislature to empower the executive.
Sir, out of the 23 priority bills, what is Malacañang wants Congress to pass, hopefully this year, if not at the end of the first session?
The first that will come to mind will have to deal with how to deal with the forthcoming ARM elections. No? So I think the consensus later, but we are still going to talk to the representatives from the ARM, precisely to also elicit their views and to make sure that there is more unity in what we hope to achieve. The ultimate goal of tackling the upcoming ARM elections has to deal with our desire to have synchronized elections by 2013. We feel that it's not being synchronized is, as propounded by one of our deputy speakers, was to start in harmony with the Constitution. Holding it a year after either the midterm or the presidential elections. And also the concept of having the potential to a distortion in the system that lends itself easily to the phenomenon of command votes and the distortion of the mandate. So there was a broad consensus as to the necessity of dealing with it and correcting the situation. There was an agreement to discuss the concerns of the affected congressmen.
As for the Congress leaders, what can you commit to pass among the 23 priority bills presented by the Palace? What can you commit to pass, if not after the first, if not before the end of the first session this year?
Yes, let me speak on behalf of the House. No? In the first place, our delegation here, aside from the mandated majority leader and minority leader, composes the leaders of virtually all of the coalition partners in the House. And so therefore, we are speaking with one mind here. And at least 10 of the bills presented by the President are already in various advanced stages of passage. And perhaps with one or two exceptions, which are still desirable but highly complicated, I can say that most of the bills that have been discussed today, and let me just say, this has been a 5-hour meeting, so there's a lot of discussion, and I myself was amazed at the amount of detail that came out. Most of them, as I said, with one or two which requires, which cannot be fast-tracked at this point, most of them are likely to pass within the year or early next year.
Sir, may you identify the 10?
Senate President.
Yes.
Well, I must say that this is the longest and most fruitful LEDAC meeting that I've ever attended in my whole service in the legislative department of the government. We tackled various bills about the economy, about security, about governance, about the uses of our natural resources, and so many others. And knowing that the management of the country is done by Malacañang, by the President, we have to support the President. And we will see to it that the legislative program that was presented to us, which was quite broad, it covers a lot of issues and a lot of problems, will be tackled by the Senate. The sooner the better. And we are doing this not to pander with Malacañang, but as a matter of duty to the people of this country.
Can I just add that we'd like to thank, of course, the leadership of both chambers, the members present today, and also to highlight the minority, which were very constructive in the positions that they were raising, as opposed to parang what normally people would expect, that they'll be dilatory. We had a tremendous output because there really was a focus on how to improve our society and what's happening in our country and the governance that's existing.
Sir, Speaker Belmonte, ano yung measure that you're saying na parang desirable but it may complications yata?
No, hindi naman complications. It's a little long, and one of them is the one deferred by everybody. Yes, so.
Oh, bakit na dinifer? Because you need longer discussions on that measure.
Yes, yes.
So you might tackle it in the next letter.
We're very enthusiastic about it, but it is a little rather complicated now. Too many issues put into one draft bill.
So you might take it up in the next LEDAC meeting.
Yes, actually, the meeting took such a long time that that a certain issue, which is the medium-term development plan, had to be deferred until the next meeting. And of course, both the senators and the congressmen also had a couple of bills that they would have wanted to be discussed. And this also, the president said, can be tackled in the next meeting.
Actually, many of the bills that we discussed are already pending in the Senate. PIRA, antitrust, land use, the question of whether to increase the number of years for basic education, and then housing problems and so forth and so on. We suggested to the President that we should postpone the discussion of the medium-term Philippine Development Program, because that is a very basic document for our program, national program, and it requires a lot of discussion. We must give it a fair hearing, but given the time that we have and the shortness of time that we have to attend to other duties, we requested for a postponement. There were other bills that were brought on the table, and one of them is the problem of climate change. We have to adopt a bill or a law that will provide for the funding of mitigation and adaptation programs for the people of this country, given the phenomenon of climate change.
Sir, can we say that at least a number of the measures that were presented would be, approved by the end of the year? At least a number of them that were discussed in the LEDAC meeting.
Quite a number of them will be finished by June.
Like, syempre, the ARM, like the ARM bill.
I think the antitrust law and several others.
Right.
The GOCC law.
Yes. And the same goes with the House. As I mentioned, at least half, if not more, of the measures proposed by the President are in fact in advanced stages of discussion, or have actually passed through the committee system in the House. So we're very. I myself would say the same as what the Senate President said, that a lot of this will be finished before the first session ends in late May.
I would like to add that one thing I observed in this LEDAC meeting, all the people gathered there were one in trying to help push all the bills presented by Malacañang in order to attain the kind of progress that this country deserves.
Sir, we know that you already have the priority list of bills, but did you see it proper to discuss the situation in Libya or the Middle East? Because there was this proposal to grant the President emergency powers. Do you see the need for that at this time? And can we have some measures to address yung possible increase in prices of oil and other issues, sir, like the evacuation of Ws?
We didn't discuss the Libya situation. Yung emergency powers, there are, for instance, what would you need? Would there be a need at this time to ask Congress for a supplemental budget to address their plight? I made to understand that there is substantial funds with OWA that can be utilized for this purpose. I think the Secretary of Energy has been briefing constantly on our mitigation or attempts to mitigate the price increases. As you know, the price of oil is now $110 per barrel. Until that situation in Libya stabilizes, there is still that pressure for those who are speculating to drive the price up. But there are several measures. Can I ask the Secretary of Energy to come up with the details? Okay, if we can present it after this session.
So there's no need, sir, to talk about emergency powers?
The acting Secretary of Foreign Affairs is actually in the area, together with Undersecretary Correjos. There is set up already a command post. Hindi ko ma-pronounce yun. Yung name ng place. But there's a ship that we will be utilizing that will transport about 2,000 plus of our countrymen to Malta. So parang we're moving substantial numbers already. So far, I think the most dangerous prone area based on, there's a time gap. Medyo matagal rin yung pagbalik ng mga reports from acting Secretary de Rosario. It's basically in Tripoli that there has been some problems, but they've heard gunfire, but they're still confirming the amount of violence that has already been happening. Maybe just say that in countries richer than us, having more resources, but the intelligence resources, we're not able to predict the situation. Towards that end, currently we will be putting in perhaps specialists who will help us gather the necessary information so that we will have timely information in a more beneficial manner, especially for fast developing situations that transpired, for instance, in Egypt and also in Libya.
Sir?
For the Senate, I would like to say here that whether we grant the President emergency powers or not, if he acts in order to protect our citizens abroad and to serve the interest of this country, the Senate will support him.
Sir, the United Nations has already imposed sanctions on Libya, and apparently there are growing calls in the diplomatic community for Gaddafi to step down. Are we going to join that call, sir? Are we making that same call?
I may have the same opinion on a personal basis, but I guess my first priority has to be to deal with the 26,000 estimated Filipinos who are already there. All of my actions will be guided as to not increasing risks that they will be they're facing or they're being forced to face them. No? So that has to be very clear. All instruments of this government will be attuned to making sure that the 26,000 are as safe as possible. Hopefully it will not deteriorate further. No? Lebanon, when it had its crisis, had a max, they roughly have the same number, about 30,000 in Lebanon at the time. There only 6,000 opted to be moved out. There is a potential here of having to move out all 26,000, and that is no easy matter, regardless of whatever country you are. Especially in a zone that already has demonstrated and exhibited violence.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Sir, yung priority legislation natin on NFA reforms, is the aim eventually to increase private sector imports versus reducing government imports? And sir, have we decided on our import volume for this year on rice?
Yung sa import volume, Secretary Alcala says that so far, their estimates as to our harvest are very, very good. And I did caution him. So, there was a man perhaps wiser than me who was in charge of agriculture at one point who gave up on agriculture. He said, no matter how good you are, no matter how honest you are, no matter how you prepared, you're still subject to the vagaries of weather. It might be good right now. So, Secretary Alcala estimates that we will need to import about 300,000 metric tons currently. I'm asking if that is sufficient to have a buffer. He says that in their inventory so far, we have the 2 months mandated. And in certain instances, because of over-importation, there are some warehouses or areas that have 80% supply on hand. So he estimates, again, that it's about 300,000. But I kept asking him to revalidate all of these figures because if we suddenly have a shortage and we go in the open market, expenses for the importation undoubtedly, given the tight food situation existing in the world, will undoubtedly have a deleterious effect on the consumers. And that has to be the focus. Make sure that they don't suffer from the vagaries of the marketplace.
Sir, yung 300,000, that's yung full year imports na po natin yun, sir. And how soon can we...
I asked him how much we have to import. He gave me the number of 300,000. But I did ask him to revalidate. Normally, we have an expected shortage of about 1.3 million tons rice. This is the amount needed to be consumed versus our production gives you the figure of 1.3 million tons. But that is also subject to validation. The amount of consumption which pegs the demand is, there are certain quarters that are saying that it is exorbitant. So that's in relation to the second question, sa private sector, yes. Yung private sector will be, at some point in time, be an entity who will perhaps be more efficient in procuring these rice supplies, who will free the necessity for government to utilize its own capital. But you would also want to prevent the strengthening of the perceived cartel, wherein they will be able to determine arbitrarily the prices. You would want government intervention to force them to be a control as to taking opportunistic measures given certain volatile situations.
Sir, last na po, diniscuss niyo ba with Secretary Alcala kung kailan tayo mag-i-import ng bigas and if this will be via tender or government-to-government transaction?
Joel, you have me at a disadvantage. He didn't give me a formal written report with all of the details. I will ask him on your behalf. There is session in the House and the Senate. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.